Hello resin art creators. In this video we're going to show you how to apply epoxy resin to wood. Resin art on wood can be achieved using several techniques. Here are a few popular techniques for creating resin art on wood. Flood coat. The flood coat technique involves pouring a large amount of epoxy resin onto the wood surface and using a spreader or foam brush to evenly distribute the resin across the entire surface. This technique is great for creating a smooth, glossy finish. Dirty pour. The dirty pour technique involves mixing multiple colors of epoxy resin together in a cup, then pouring the mixture onto the wood surface in a random pattern. You can also use a heat gun or torch to manipulate the colors and create unique designs. Layering. The layering technique involves pouring one layer of epoxy resin onto the wood surface, allowing it to partially cure, then adding additional layers with different colors or designs. This technique is great for creating depth and dimension in your resin art piece. Resin and wood burn. This technique involves burning the wood surface with a torch or heat gun to create a charred effect, then pouring epoxy resin over the charred areas to create a contrasting effect. This technique can create a unique and rustic look for your resin art piece. Resin and inlay. The resin and inlay technique involves using epoxy resin to fill in carved out areas or cracks in the wood surface, then sanding the surface down to create a smooth finish. This technique is great for incorporating natural elements such as stones or crystals into your resin art piece. With these techniques, you can create a beautiful and unique resin art piece on wood that showcases your creativity and style. Resin art with wood involves using epoxy resin to create unique and colorful designs on a wooden surface. Here are the steps to create resin art with wood. Materials. Wood surface. Epoxy resin kit includes resin and hardener, mixing cups and stir sticks, pigment dyes or acrylic paint, heat gun or torch, painter's tape, sandpaper, clean cloth, gloves and protective eyewear. Steps. Prepare the wood surface. Sand the wood surface with sandpaper to remove any rough spots or blemishes. Wipe the wood with a clean cloth to remove any dust or debris. Seal the wood. If the wood is porous, you may need to seal it with a clear coat to prevent the epoxy resin from absorbing into the wood. Follow the instructions on the clear coat product and let it dry completely. Mix the epoxy resin. Follow the instructions on the epoxy resin kit to mix the resin and hardener together. Mix thoroughly for about 2 to 3 minutes. Add pigments or paint. Add pigment dyes or acrylic paint to the epoxy resin mixture and mix thoroughly. You can experiment with different colors and combinations to create your desired effect. Apply the resin. Pour the epoxy resin mixture onto the wood surface and use a paintbrush or foam brush to spread it evenly. You can also use a heat gun or torch to help remove any air bubbles. Add additional layers. If you want to create a multi-layered effect, allow the first layer of resin to partially cure before adding another layer on top. Repeat this step until you've achieved your desired effect. Let the epoxy resin cure. Allow the epoxy resin to cure according to the instructions on the kit. This can take anywhere from a few hours to several days, depending on the brand and type of epoxy resin you're using. Sand the surface. If there are any rough spots or imperfections on the surface, sand it with sandpaper and wipe it clean with a cloth. Remove tape. If you used painter's tape to protect any areas around the wood, remove it once the epoxy resin has fully cured. With these steps, you can create a beautiful and unique resin art piece with wood. The process of making a resin table involves pouring a layer of epoxy resin over a wooden surface and then allowing it to cure and harden into a smooth, glossy finish. This creates a unique and beautiful piece of furniture that is both functional and aesthetically pleasing. To make a resin table, you will need the following materials and tools: a wooden table or tabletop, epoxy resin and hardener, stirring sticks, a torch or heat gun to remove bubbles, sandpaper, a dust mask, protective gloves and eyewear. Here are the basic steps to create a resin table. Prepare your workspace by covering it with a protective material, such as plastic or newspaper. Sand your wooden table or tabletop to remove any rough spots or imperfections. Mix your epoxy resin according to the manufacturer's instructions. Be sure to wear gloves and eye protection when handling epoxy resin. Pour a small amount of the resin onto the wooden surface and spread it out evenly using a stirring stick. Use a torch or heat gun to remove any bubbles that may have formed on the surface. Continue pouring and spreading the resin until the entire surface is covered. Allow the resin to cure for at least 24 hours, or until it is completely hardened. Sand the surface of the resin using progressively finer grits of sandpaper until you achieve the desired level of smoothness and shine. Repeat the process of pouring and spreading the resin if you want a thicker layer. Once you have completed these steps, you should have a beautiful resin table that is ready to use and enjoy. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.